So recently, Apple announced updates to the parental controls on the iPhone. And if you set these up a year ago and haven't touched them since, a lot has changed. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all of the new features Apple announced at their Worldwide Developer Conference in June of 2026, including some things that are already turned on automatically that you probably won't even know about yet. And stick around because later in the video, I'm going to show you the fully redesigned screen time. Apple basically rebuilt it from scratch. And the new age-based guidance feature is going to be really helpful for parents trying to get everything set up for the first time. Today, I'm going to walk you through all of the new parental control features that Apple is releasing in 2026, and I'll tell you how to get it on your phone before it's publicly available so you can get this set up before school starts this year. So real quick before we dive in, parental controls basically help you manage four things: what your kid can access, who they can talk to, when they can use their phone, and how long they can use it. Apple improved all four of those this year, so we're going to go through each one and watch later for the new Ask to Browse feature walkthrough. This is a brand new feature Apple just added this year, and if you have younger kids especially, this one's going to be really important. And the first thing you need to do before any of this works is set up what Apple calls a child account. That's our starting out point. So if you don't know how to do that, go ahead and check out my YouTube video about how to set up parental controls for an iPhone. I walk you through kind of exactly how to set up that child account. So go ahead and check out that video. But you might be asking yourself, what is a child account, Sarah? So let's get that out of the way first, because this is the thing that makes everything else work. Without it, you are missing out probably on half of the protections that Apple has built into the device. A child account is a special Apple account designed specifically for kids. It's required if your child is under the age of 13. But you can set one up for kids all the way up to 18. And what it does is automatically turn on a whole bunch of protections the moment that you create it. Now, I'm talking things like blocking adult websites, App Store age ratings, communication safety, ask to buy, which means your kid has to ask permission before downloading any app, even free ones. So now if you're setting up a brand new device for your child, this comes up during the initial device setup. Apple walks you right through it in the Setup Assistant. Again, I have a whole video that breaks that down. But if your child already has an Apple ID, especially if they set it up with the wrong birthday or listed themselves as an adult, Apple now makes it so easy to fix that. You used to have to make a phone call to Apple support, which was fairly difficult to navigate. Now you just go to Apple account settings on their device, tap personal information, and correct their age and convert it to a child account. Like, oh my gosh, so much simpler than what it used to be. Many parents have been prone to make their child's age younger in the past just to get past some restriction capabilities. A lot of people think that restrictions delete at age 13. I have another video all about why that is false. So just make sure when you are setting up a child's age, you give them the correct age, because there's a lot of different things that go along with that. So just put in the actual age that your child is. And now, don't forget, within family sharing, you can add a second parent or guardian to help manage everything. So if you've got two parents trying to stay on top of this, you can both have access, even if they aren't in the same home anymore. Okay. Now let's talk about what your kid can actually access on their phone, apps, and websites. So if you're setting up a new device for your child, Apple added something new this year called Focused Start. When you're first setting up the phone, you choose exactly which apps your child starts with. And there are three options. The first is Essentials Only. This is exactly what it sounds like. Your kid gets FaceTime, messages, phone, maps, compass, and settings. That's it. Nothing else until you approve it. No App Store, no Safari, nothing. The second option is a starter pack, a pre-configured set that includes the essentials, plus some apps to support learning and creativity. The third, fully customized, where you handpick exactly which apps they start with. Now, for adding apps over time, this is where Ask to Buy comes in handy. And this one has been around for a while, but it's worth talking about and mentioning here. So your kid finds an app, requests it, And then you get a notification in your Messages app. You tap on it, you can see the App Store page, the reviews, the age rating, so you can make a determination if you think this app is safe for your child. And then you can approve it or deny it. And that applies to free apps too. So a lot of parents just think ask to buy means ask to actually purchase, but no, it also covers free apps. Now, the one thing I will say that I'm still down on screen time and Apple's parental controls on is that there is no Android app to manage a kid's iPhone. So if you are parents with an Android device, you cannot manage your kid's iPhone through Google Family Link or anything like that, or even an app on your Android device that could manage the screen time settings on the Apple device. So that's just something to be aware of. If you do want to get your kid an iPhone, then you probably also need to have an iPhone if you want to manage it appropriately. So, and while they can ask to buy apps, even though the app is free, there is a brand new one that is called Ask to Browse. So this is the same concept, but for websites. So your kid tries to visit a new website in Safari, you get a request in Messages, you review it, and you decide whether or not that's appropriate. And if you approve it, then they can see that website. And if not, then they can't. And it works across iPhone, iPad, Mac. So one approval covers all their devices. But again, it's only going to cover Safari. It's not going to cover Chrome or any other type of browser if you download and install those browsers. So just make sure that you don't approve any of those other apps so those website restrictions maintain across the board. Now, adult websites are blocked automatically for all children under 18. So that's turned on the moment you create a child account. You don't have to do anything extra for that. And one more detail on Ask to Browse, embedded content works also. So that means if you've approved a website, your child can view embedded content on that page. So like if they have an embedded YouTube video inside their web page. However, if the embedded content is coming from a site you've already blocked, it won't be viewed, which is pretty smart for Apple to think about that loophole. So, if you go to a website, it's got a YouTube video embedded into it, but you have blocked YouTube, then they aren't going to be able to see that video. Okay, this section is the one I feel like a lot of parents might skip, and that's who your child actually can communicate with on their phone. Apple has something called contact approval. Basically, you require your kid to ask before connecting with anyone new in Messages, FaceTime, or the phone app. If a stranger sends your kids a message, your child literally cannot see the message until you approve that person. So here's how it works. Your kid gets a message from someone new. They can't see it. They send you a request. You get the notification in Messages. Again, you have to have an iPhone in order for this to work. With the person's name and phone number, you approve or deny. If you approve, your kid can now talk to that person across Messages, FaceTime, and the phone. You can also allow group conversations as long as one approved contact is already in the group. Now, I'm going to give Apple a little bit of a hard time on this one. I would prefer it if the group is allowed, if all members of the group are allowed. But they've got it. So if one member of the group is allowed, then your kid can be able to interact with that group. So your kid can still be in a class group chat if a friend they're already approved to talk to is in it. For kids under 13, this is on by default, but for teens, you can enable it too. And I think it's worth considering even for older kids, especially if they're in middle school. So now let's talk about communication safety, because Apple added something new to this one too. Communication safety automatically blurs detected nudity in images and videos. So that's stuff being sent to your kid or stuff your kid is trying to send. It warns them and gives them guidance. And this works on live FaceTime calls too. So now here's one of the downsides. I always like to be upfront about this, but no automated detection system is going to be perfect. It's not going to catch absolutely everything. But the fact that it's on automatically for all children under 18 and now covers both nudity and violent content is a meaningful improvement. But here's what's new this year. Apple expanded communication safety to also detect gore and violent content. So if someone sends your kid an image or video with graphic, violent content, it can get intercepted as well. Your kid gets a warning and resources. And again, you don't have to set this up. It's on by default with a child account. This one is especially important for tweens in group chats. You'd be surprised what gets shared. There is a downside to this feature though, and is that you don't have a choice to completely block it. Yes, it will blur it. It'll give them a notification. It'll give them some resources, but the child can choose to override that block. So it's kind of more of a check and balance instead of like something that's actually going to really protect them from the content. So next up, let's talk about screen time. Apple basically rebuilt this from the ground up. And if you tried to set up screen time before, kind of gave up because it was confusing, or you had just one block of time that you were able to set, you wanted to set up multiple blocks of time. The good news is the new version is noticeably easier to use. So the first big improvement is syncing. Your screen time settings now sync quickly across all of your child's devices. And this is why when you do update to iOS 27, you will have to update every device in your family group in order to utilize these screen time settings. And I'll get into exactly how you do that in just a little bit. So whatever you set in their iPhone is going to show up on their iPad. That gap was a real frustration before, and they finally fixed it. So now the main new feature is called time allowances. This is the new way to set daily limits on how long your kid spends in certain types of apps. Apple has built 3 built-in categories: entertainment, games, and social media. You can set one combined daily limit across all 3 or individual limits for each category. So maybe your kid gets 2 hours of entertainment and 1 hour of games, but social media is capped at 30 minutes. You set that once and it applies every day automatically. And here's the part that is really awesome. So Apple now includes age-based guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. When you're setting up time limits, Apple gives you a recommended starting point based on your child's age and what child health experts actually suggest. So you can adjust it from there. Nobody can tell you how to parent your kid, but having that as your starting point is seriously helpful if you're not sure where to begin. With new screen time, you can create custom categories. So if you want all of the homework apps in one bucket with unlimited time, but gaming apps in a separate bucket with a limit, you can do exactly that. And then there's schedules, which is honestly one of my favorite new additions. I love how the scheduler works. So schedules let you decide which apps are available at different times of the day. So Apple gives you pre-built options before school, during school, and after school, evening, and nighttime. So you can use those as is, or you can completely customize them. So here's a practical example. You set games to unavailable during school hours. They just disappear from the home screen, and then at 3 o'clock, they automatically come back. Your kid doesn't have to ask. You don't have to remember to unlock anything. It just happens. So don't forget, there is a one-tap override for shortened school days and holidays. So that always used to happen to me. We'd be on vacation somewhere and my kid's phone would shut down at the time in Utah instead of the time where we were. And so it was always a little difficult. So you're not locked into a schedule on a snow day or on a holiday. So if you're out of school, you go ahead and use that override, or your kid might be a little confused about why their games disappeared on a Saturday. So they also have finally included the ability to pause the device at will. If you want your kid to put the phone away for dinner, or if they get grounded, you can just pause the device and they won't be able to use any apps that are not always allowed. Now, I ran through a lot of these features fairly quick, but if you want to try them out for yourself, if you want to get these settings now, there are a couple things that you would have to do. Now, these features aren't going to be released publicly until the fall. So that is when iOS 27 is supposed to be available for public release. However, you can get these settings now, but there are a couple things that you would have to do. First, you need to download the Apple Developer app from the App Store on every single phone and Apple device in your family group. Then you would open up the app and make sure you have an account. You open up that Apple Developer app. Make sure you have an account, and you can just sign up with your Apple ID if you don't already have an account. Once the app is installed and logged in, you can go to Settings, then General, then Software Update, and tap on Beta Updates. Turn on the iOS 27 Developer Beta. Download and install the beta update. Since this is such an overhaul, it needs to be done on every device in the family group before it will allow you to utilize the new settings. So, a word of warning about that is that it is still in beta. This is not a public release yet. So, there may be bugs and things you encounter when setting up anything in the parental controls or even just across the phone, because it is beta for all of the features in the phone. So if you run into any of those bugs, just know that that is likely to happen until the public release. So, all right, before I wrap up, there is one more thing I want to make sure you know about because I think it kind of flies under the radar a little bit. So, and that is screen distance. When you set up a child account, screen distance is automatically enabled. What it does is monitor how far your child is holding their phone from their face, and it reminds them to hold it back if they're too close. It sounds simple, but eye strain and myopia in kids is a real issue. In my eyes, they're just not what they used to be. I got glasses when I turned 30 years old, and it just keeps getting worse. So catching that habit early really, really does matter. So here's your quick audit. And this is for people who don't even have the new iOS 27. Just go ahead and check 3 things. Does your child have a child account? Make sure that's squared away. Go to screen time and check. This means they should be signed into their phone with their own account, not your Apple ID. 2 is communication safety turned on. Like I said, it is already a feature. So go to screen time, tap on your child's name, and verify. And then this is the one that you won't be able to really do until you get iOS 27, but do you have at least one schedule set up in screen time? And even though there's an overhaul, you can set up, maybe one of your child's apps to be disabled or something like that. So go ahead and make a setting in screen time and put just a couple restrictions in place on that. So that should do it for the iPhone parental controls for 2026. Whether you're setting this up for the first time or coming back to update what you had before, child account first, app access second, communication controls third, screen time fourth, go in that order and you'll have it covered. Now, I know a lot of the tech content out there is designed to scare you. And honestly, fear works. It gets clicks, it gets shares, but that's not what I'm here to do. I want you to feel confident about the technology in your home, not afraid of it. So if this video helped you feel even a little bit more in control or saved you from a Google spiral, I would love it if you'd help other families find this by hitting that like button or share it with another parent, another family member, or anyone else who might be dealing with the same thing. And definitely subscribe so that the next tech question in your house doesn't have to start from scratch. Coming up this month, I am covering some more Google Family Link for Android parents, a full breakdown of the best parental control apps. So if you've got a mix of iPhone and Android in your house, definitely stay tuned for those. Until next time, this is Family Tech Powering Down.